Welcome to another Nerd Rant.
Hi, Mo.
Hello, Manuel. The first thing we should address is your t-shirt, because I think when we cut to your camera, we can only see Tut. So it says Tutplutz. Okay, so now with that out of the way.
That's actually one of the very few merchandise articles in existence. I think there is 3 t-shirts of this design.
I think so,
and
yeah.
it has a Tagma logo on the back. And there is one for you, one for me, and one for my wife, Barbara. So, I'm just featuring...
It's not available. We don't have an online shop, but nevertheless, like, comment, and subscribe, support us. So should we break down the fourth wall even further and tell people how we come to our topics? Today's topic is going to be photogrammetry and 3D scanning. The process at which we arrived at this topic is just this. It's around, it's 11:30 in the night. I'll be flying out next weekend out of the country, so we'll have to record these rants. We'll have to pre-record. And we literally ran out of ideas, and photogrammetry.
Photogrammetry is something I can talk about because I just spent years on it. And I'm teaching it at the university, and I really like it, and it's a very nice technique. So we decided to talk about photogrammetry.
Yeah,
today.
and I have very little exposure to it. I mean, I dabbled in it here and there, but I think you have way more experience.
The thing with photogrammetry is it's, to me at least, it is impressive because it generates detail and detail and detail. And detail is something that is hard to get with 3D in general. There is a manual approach. You can go sculpting, or you, of course, go the procedural route and try to implement some fancy simulation algorithms to come up with detail. But there's this third possibility to just rely on data, go out there and just shoot some photos and make the computer turn them into 3D.
And the magical thing for me is not only that it produces high resolution, detailed 3D surfaces or point clouds, but also it brings with it the captured color, which makes all the difference, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. With photogrammetry, you can capture 3D assets that are very hard to get with different techniques, with other techniques than that. And that is why I think it's a very, very nice method. And it wasn't that accessible in the past.
No.
I mean, photogrammetry is around since the last century. They started out with aerial photography in the 1900s. And they did photogrammetry by hand, actually, to come up with topographical maps and stuff like that. And so the method is old. It's just to get a 3D model, you have a lot of computations to do. And that you couldn't pull it off, basically. It's just since very capable graphics cards are available, and they are not available at the moment, unfortunately.
Nope.
But in general, they are available and they are cheap enough. So it's just now that you can use a standard personal computer to come up with photogrammetry solutions.
And I would like to emphasize that we have to draw a division line here between photogrammetry and other 3D acquisition solutions, such as structured light. Structured light has been available previously, about a decade or so, I'd say, for the consumer as us. However, it had its own downsides. You have to have a projector of some sort. And in general, I think the quality and the ease of acquisition nowadays with photogrammetry is not matched by any of the other techniques.
I love photogrammetry because as soon as you have some sort of camera, even a smartphone will do. You can go out and capture highly detailed 3D models, throw the pictures at the computer, and it will just generate your 3D assets. And you can go for every resolution that you like. It's really only about how many pictures you take and how close you get to the subject. And that is fantastic because high quality models for free in your computer, easy. It's recommended to use a decent camera, of course, because image quality is key in this process. Nevertheless, it works even with a smartphone. And if you're just interested in, I don't know, the rough dimensions of something, perfect. I for example, discussed with my wife to actually renovate the house. Mm-hmm. And for that, I did a photogrammetry scan of the status quo to create a model in Blender that is detailed and up to scale. And that worked nicely with photogrammetry.
When you're mentioning you need a good camera, I think we should also emphasize or explicitly mention that you, of course, also need a good lens with that, a sharp lens, that is.
Exactly. It is all about image quality. As I said, you want to have the sharpest pixels possible, and you want to make sure that lighting is not varying between images, because you are throwing them at the computer. The computer has to detect features. That means it tries to find points in the images that are the same point in the real world, in the 3D world, and it can only do so if the lighting is not changing. So if it actually has a chance to run its kernel magic over the image to find the same spot in different images.
Let's talk about a few methods of achieving said lighting conditions and said image quality.
Yes, basically, if you have manual control over your camera, the equation is easy. It is all about the available light. The sensor, of course, needs light to produce an image, and you can tell the camera or adjust the camera for how much light enters the camera and hits the sensor. And for this, you have three main controls. That is aperture, that is f-stop, and it is ISO.
And exposure time.
And exposure time, yeah.
So aperture and f-stop are synonymous.
Basically the same, and exposure time, that's true. So if you have an aperture that is large, a lot of light is entering the camera, but the downside is that you get a very shallow depth of field. So you want to close down your aperture.
So as much sharpness over your Z direction.
Exactly. But it's not exactly true. Most lenses actually get the sharpest around an f-stop of 11 or something.
I think it's even before that. I think it's between 5.6 and 8.
Even that. So it's not necessarily true that if you get closer and closer,
you'll have to compromise in some ways.
And then exposure time. Well, usually you are shooting handheld, just because if you are using a tripod, it takes forever. Yeah. Remember that you want to create or want to shoot 600 plus images per subject. So using a tripod is just pain in the ass. And that means handheld, most people I know might be able to pull off a sharp shot with 1/160th.
It depends on the focal length of the lens, actually.
And sensor size and everything.
Usually
but you're on the safe side with an aperture that short.
Rule of thumb with photographers is that it's 1 over your focal length that you can handheld.
Something like that. Still, it's on the quick side of things. And to be honest, that means most of the time, if you're shooting outdoors, you don't have sufficient light. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're trying to scan stuff like what you see here from my exterior in the woods, there is just not enough available light there. So you have to somehow compensate by turning up the ISO. And that means introducing grain. But I found from experience that grain is less a problem to the algorithm than blurry areas in the images. It's, you have to try it out. Mm-hmm. There's not much you can do. Of course, you can go shooting in the studio, and I did that, and I used flashes, a lot of them, 16 flashes in a small basement, produced enough light for decent settings. Yeah, but basically, it's all about if you want to find help online, you can just look up photography tutorials telling you about shooting the sharpest image possible.
I would like to add a few techniques to that. The instances in which I did photogrammetry were a bit different than you were describing. So I tried to mechanize it as much, and I tried to go a total different route, because while your 16 flash basement setup is absolutely impressive and a beast of a setup, it was too elaborate for me. So I went the route that most of the guys, I think, or most of the folks nowadays do, which is a ring flash, cross-polarized ring flash. That means you're shooting in a space where your ring flash is the main or the only light source. So it just shoots in light straight from the axis of your lens, meaning there's no shadows. And as you're shooting cross-polarized, that means a polarization filter on your ring flash and a polarization filter on your camera lens. You eliminate most of the specular reflections, thus get diffuse, thus give the algorithm a good chance to actually see surface detail and evaluate it.
Sounds like a fantastic technique.
The only downside of it is if you want to have a ring flash that is able to fire quickly. Again, you mentioned 600 images. I stuck with less, like 200 to 300 images. But even then, if you want to take those, you will end up getting a rather expensive ring flash, one of the big ones that retails starting at around 500-600 euros maybe.
Yeah, but that's true for the 16 flashes too, even if you go for the cheap Chinese models. It's not the cheapest, but you can get decent results with available light easily. If you just want to scan a diffuse or opaque object, wait for an overcast day, go outside to an open field and rig your object on top of a tripod and it will work, sort of. Yeah. So it's not necessary to go artificial lighting. Yeah. And then you have these images and the computer will figure out features in the images and then we'll try to align them. And the technique that it's going for is old. It's basically a navigation method from the Middle Ages, triangulation. So it just, if it has two features in two images, it can construct the camera locations and then shoot a ray through the image feature. And where the rays intersect, that has to be the point where the 3D feature used to be placed. So it's basically quite easy. It's just you need a lot of these triangulation computations. So that means still today it is waiting, even with a lot of graphic cards. And graphic cards, as with rendering, speed up the process tremendously.
Also, software choice, I would imagine.
Yes, and regarding the software choice, there is 3 programs I have a lot of experience with, and I just quickly Googled them. The first one that I started out with is called Agisoft Metashape. It's a Russian product. Mm-hmm. To me, the developers of this program are very, very friendly and helpful. Mm-hmm. The forums have a very nice culture. And it's a very good program. It's easy to use. It's cross-platform. It's running with Windows. It's running with Mac and with Linux. And it is using all your resources. Whatever you have, it will be used. So it's even on a MacBook Pro, it's working. Mm-hmm. And there is a 30-day trial version without any limitations. So you can just download it and try your first scan directly. And they offer 2 versions, actually, a professional edition that is meant for georeferencing and this advanced stuff, which is quite costly and rightfully so, because it's a lot of effort, a lot of work to develop something like this. And then there is a standard edition that is sufficient for all your needs 3D scanning regarding game assets or 3D assets, and that is actually quite cheap.
I think it's $170 or
something like that. And it's not a subscription; it's a one-time purchase for a perpetual license. Fantastic, if you ask me.
And also the quality. I mean, in
quality
between,
is nice.
Yeah, quality is nice. Also, I find it quite fast.
It is actually quite fast, but to be honest, there is a faster competitor, which is capturing reality capture. And recently, Epic just ate it, bought it, integrated it into the Epic universe of Unreal, which is basically a good thing because licenses went down price-wise.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. Capturing reality is a little bit more cumbersome to use. The basic principle is identical. And to me, I always had the feeling that the quality is a little bit better than Metashape. Mm-hmm. Some people online are saying that this is probably due to them cheating in a way by integrating the high path of the texture into the 3D model or something like that. To me, this is not cheating. No, it's just improving quality.
Clever
but
improvement.
Even if they do, I cannot tell. The quality is very, very crisp, and it is even faster. But as far as I know, it relies on NVIDIA graphics cards.
Which, for me, wouldn't even be a downside. The thing that always annoyed me a bit about that product is their weird licensing or pricing scheme, or have they changed that? Because I remember...
It has changed. It was very, very, very strange. And now they have a scheme where you can just... buy credit points, so to speak. So you pay per scan,
Yeah, but that's
per
still,
image.
but that is still that weird. That is still that weird licensing scheme where basically you are paying you're paying per scan for the quality of your scan.
Yeah, that is how it is. Like with the online render service, where you're paying basically per CPU cycle. That means per pixel that you're rendering. I don't like it either. But at least there is this not necessarily cheap $3,750 unlimited license that used to be 15,000. Compared to that, that is really just a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And it offers command line scripting and everything. So for a professional pipeline, this is the one that you need. And I have to mention that they have an academic program right now, or introduced right now, where you can use it for free in academia, which is important to me.
So if I would be a cynic, I would say now they have a competitive offer to Agisoft, because basically it's the same conditions as Agisoft. If you are a professional pipeline dev, then you're bound for 3,700, which is around the same thing as
exactly.
For Metashapes.
But with Agisoft, you get the very cheap standard license, standard version.
Exactly, that's my point.
And that is $179, which is the way to go, if you ask me. But there's a third option, and the third option is to do it
manually?
No, for free with a program called Meshroom by Alice Vision, and that is really actually a very good program. It's basically a GUI around a lot of different command line tools that are out there for all the individual stages of photogrammetry. But it is polished and it works well, and it spits out highly detailed results of good quality. So I can recommend it. Of course, it's a lot slower than the commercial alternatives, and even the quality is not the same. But the process is the same. So learning photogrammetry is perfect with Meshroom.
So here's my brief take on this. I've used all those tools as well. I think I've used them way, way shorter, way briefer than you did. I would not recommend Alice Vision. I think even for learning, you can get away with a 30-day Metashape version, and you'd be better off than using Alice Vision, because Alice Vision is so incredibly, unbearably slow.
That's true, unfortunately.
It is. I was able to pull off scan with it once, but if you want to tweak something, if you want to redo the scan, you're basically waiting another night.
That's true, but that's sad. There are different kinds of people in the world, like Mo and Manu. Mo is easily annoyed by waiting, but if Mo says something is unbearably slow, that does not necessarily mean that it is really unbearably slow. It is on the slow side of things, of course, but there are people that are willing to wait a night. So test it out for yourself. What he's saying is absolutely true. It is slow compared to the others. It's ridiculously slow.
Basically, what I'm saying is check out all three tools. They have demo versions, all of them. Some of them are even free for perpetual use. Make up your mind if a fast scan is worth $170 to you, or if you'd rather can bear waiting for your scan and go free.
True. I think it depends a lot if you are doing this on a regular basis, or if you just need one or two scans, or if you're just tipping your toes into the water of photogrammetry and want to try it out.
My opinion is, as soon as you use a photogrammetry scan that you have to do yourself within a commercial project, you're better off buying Agisoft.
That's true. Agree. Well, then you take the photos and you throw them into one of these programs, and they will spit out a detailed, high-resolution scan. In the case of Agisoft, that is probably something around 7 million polygons.
Wait. The first thing that they would spit out, and which I find also very, very useful for some sort of artwork, not all of them, is a point cloud.
Absolutely, yeah. During the process, they will create a sparse and dense point cloud with a lot of points, and that can be something very, very interesting for abstracted artworks with Houdini. You can export this, and we did it in the past, and then do stuff with it, feed it as a source to fluid simulation or stuff. Very interesting.
Nowadays also Unreal imports it and renders it very well, so you can interactively explore it. really nice as well. And there are some amazing artworks by artists whose name I sadly forgot. I think Ruben Fro or something is one of the names. Their work in point clouds is amazing. Really beautiful stuff. Nightscapes, landscapes.
Yeah, it's very impressive to me too. It's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
But if you're going for the classical
Yes.
3D asset, the only thing that I wanted to mention is it does not stop with a high-res scan.
No.
You will have an asset with a ridiculous amount of polygons and you cannot use it anywhere. Of course, you can import it into Houdini or Blender and render it. But if you want to have 10 of these assets in your scene, it just stops working. So what you need to do is you have to clean up the model and you have to come up with some sort of retopology low-res asset and turn all the detail into texture maps. And that is actually the meat of the process. So
Yes.
that is the thing that is really cumbersome, annoying, and lengthy, and needs a lot of testing and trying out.
Any recommendations or any hints for those parts of the processes?
Well, actually, with the game tools in Houdini, you are very well equipped already. There are a lot of nodes that are targeting automation of this process. Try them out. And even Agisoft and Capturing Reality and Meshroom are all inside of Houdini with nodes. So you can just use them from inside of Houdini with the game tools.
Although I'm not sure if Agisoft is supported within Houdini if you only bought the $170 license or if you need the
Probably
command line
not.
interface.
Probably not, yeah, test it out. But in theory, if you're planning on, I don't know, world domination by 3D scanning, then you could use them from within Houdini. And that means you can use Houdini to build a pipeline around it, basically. Nice. Try it out.
So we have retopology then, we have the reprojection of a texture, baking that into a displacement map. Anything we forgot here? Any part of the process that we should
Delighting,
mention?
probably.
Oh, delighting, yes.
That's
yes.
very important. It's forgotten often because even if you make sure that you have very even lighting conditions while shooting, you will have self-shadowing, even with a ring flash.
Yes.
And you want to get rid of this self-shadowing because it is pretty much the same effect as ambient occlusion creates.
Yes.
And of course, you want to use your model in a different context than shooting conditions.
Yeah, basically you want to do reverse ambient occlusion on your textures.
That is what I do, at least. That means I'm taking the high-res model, creating an ambient occlusion path, bake it into textures, and then just do the opposite of what you usually do with ambient occlusion. Instead of multiplying it on top of your albedo map, I'm dividing it out. And that works quite well. And that gives you a real or sort of approximation to a real albedo map, the albedo map being just the reflectivity spectrum. And that is what you want to have for PBR. And if you find this process to be too cumbersome, there is even a free tool by Agisoft that does delighting interactively. And that is fun, actually. It's called the Texture Delighter. And with that one, you load your diffuse map, including all the shadows, even hard ones. And then you can paint areas and you mark the areas that should be removed. And then the tool will try its best to remove these areas. And not always, but most of the time it works quite well. It's not meant for a pipeline sort of approach where you just want to create 2,000 scans for a game. But if you just want to delight one or two maps, that is a nice tool.
What about the other maps that you might want to have, like a roughness or a specular or transmission?
Well, you have to derive these from the scanned data, and while you are getting a realistic displacement map, because you have all the geometric detail, you don't get, and you can, of course, derive a realistic normal map from the displacement, because the normal map is just the derivative of the displacement map. So that works. Not the other way around necessarily, basically, because that's an integral and that's not that easy because you have to add the constant c. But this way it works.
Although I must admit, there are solutions to that.
No, there are solutions like, for example, Substance Alchemist does it quite well. It's just if you compare it to the real thing, it does not hold up. Nevertheless, it's possible, of course. what you do not get at all with standard photogrammetry is a roughness. No way of getting the roughness. There are scanning methods to get the roughness involving or using a lot of structured light images again, but it's a very cumbersome and lengthy process.
I mean, we could talk about all those mechanized, let's call them mechanized for lack of better term, versions of 3D data acquisition, such as structured light, such as cross-polarized images, such as automated turntable shootings, stuff like that. But that might be a topic for another nerd rant at all, because it's very technical, very interesting in my opinion. Lots of clever and very intuitive algorithms sometimes. But let's postpone that.
Yeah, probably for another day. Maybe we want to mention laser scanning then too. Yes, but with standard photogrammetry, as spit out by these three programs, you don't get any roughness information. But what I found, especially with nature assets, it's easy to trick the eye. So using the albedo and deriving some sort of plausible roughness from the albedo usually works. And what I do is a little trick to convert my albedo into HSV. Color space, because then you have a channel for the hue, a black and white image that's indicating the hue. So if you, for example, have a rock with mossy parts on it, the mossy parts will be green and the rock will be some other color. And with the H channel of the HSV image, you get a map for free, or a mask for free, basically, because of the different hue.
Yeah.
So it easily separates it out, and then you can use that to just distribute different values, different roughness values that you look up in the table.
Yeah.
Say, that's one method. And for all of this post-processing of the textures, I actually use Substance Designer by now Adobe. Maybe to conclude this little nerd rant about photogrammetry, I would love not to use Substance Designer. I think Substance Designer is a beautiful product, and I really like it a lot, and I even consider doing tutorials on it because I like it so much. But what I like even more is COPS.
I think this is about time we started rallying for COPS 2020.
Yes.
22. 2022, that is.
2022, be it 2023, but soon.
No, 22.
Please.
Let's make 22 the year of an overhauled COPS or 2D solution.
Make COPS future-proof.
Yeah, make COPS fast again.
Because
and easy
COPS
to
are
use
just
again.
beautiful. They already do a lot of stuff.
And by the way, let's get this up. By COPS, we mean compositing operators in Houdini.
Yeah, that is what we mean. But that is to be expected from a Houdini channel, right?
And side effects kind of neglected this area, but it aged, and
well, they only have so many resources,
of course, and you have to distribute them.
But everywhere. But now it
might be about time,
as if it would be time to develop COPS a little further, because COPS is, to me, it would be so nice, because COPS could be the compositor that I need. I don't need anything else. Maybe a little painting. There's no painting node currently inside there for painting masks, but other than that, that's all that I need. Adjusting images a little bit here, a little bit there. And then, of course, you could just do all this procedural texturing goodness inside of
it would be
COPS.
the texture synthesis tool that I want so badly inside of Houdini. Instead of working on grids or two-dimensional volumes that you have to abuse in weird ways, just have a decent tool set to directly manipulate.
But I hear a lot of people comment already on why use Substance Designer. And yeah, that's totally okay. It's a valid opinion. It's just, for me, it would be nice to have COPS. Not because of replicating the same nodes as Substance Designer, but because of VEX.
Yes, because
just being able to drop down a node and scripting my own operator without all the intricacies of function nodes inside of Substance Designer or Python and how is it called, this processing language inside of Nuke that you can use. It's all boilerplate heavy, and it's just not nice.
Yeah, VEX for 2D textures would be really, really amazing.
Let me put it in this typical wording. It would be a godsend.
And with that,
the nerd rant ends.
Please, side effects, overhaul COPS.
Please.
And to everyone else, Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what we missed. Let us know what you want to add. And until next time, as always, it's cheers.
And goodbye.